So this is Allan Lichtman. He is a professor and also known as Nostradamus of American politics. They call him that because he has developed a system that he claims will help him predict the next president. He also says that he has been right since 1981. The system is a 13-point checklist that uses true or false statements to assess the situation of the United States and its political system ahead of a presidential election. When 5 or fewer items on the checklist are false, the nominee of the incumbent party is predicted to win the election. So in this case, it would be Kamala Harris. But when 6 or more items on the checklist are false, the nominee of the challenging party, Trump, is predicted to win. So here was Allan Lichtman's assessment using his system. Now remember, the incumbent party is the Democratic Party. The first key is party mandate. After the midterm elections, the incumbent party holds more seats in the U.S. House of Representatives than after the previous midterm elections. So 2022 versus 2018. In 2022, the Democrats had 222 seats. Back in 2018, they had 235. They had more back in 2018, so it's a strike against Kamala Harris. The second key, no primary contest. Yeah, there was literally no contest for Kamala Harris. They just handed it to her. I honestly feel like you could have just taken a lesser-known governor that's a Democrat, had 3 debates with Kamala Harris, and they would do better in the polls. But that is not a strike against Kamala Harris. The third key is incumbent seeking re-election. The incumbent party candidate is the sitting president. She's a sitting vice president. The fourth key, no third party. There is no significant third party or independent campaign. Lichtman also has that one marked true. So those ones weren't that controversial. These next ones are so to the point where even other Democratic forecasters of presidential politics disagree with him. Incumbent party made a strong short-term economy. Now the economy is the number one issue in the 2024 election. Trump has a 10-point lead on this issue according to Pew Research. Groceries are too high, rent's too high, childcare's too high, and most Americans believe that Kamala Harris would just be a continuation of Biden. But Allan Lichtman marked this one true. He was like, no, people, they just don't know about the economy. It's actually doing fine. Same thing with the next key, long-term economy. Also had that one marked true. I feel like most voters would disagree with Allan Lichtman. The next key, the incumbent party had major policy change. Like, even Biden supporters would agree that that is a false key. Allan Lichtman marked that one true. The next one, no social unrest. I mean, there's protesters, but there's protesters every year, every month for every issue. And that one is marked true. The next key, no scandal. I mean, there was the whole Hunter Biden thing, there was Afghanistan, there was covering up Biden's cognitive decline, and that's why Kamala Harris is in this position in the first place. There was a document found at Biden's house, and when he was confronted about it, said, yeah, he was next to my Corvette, isn't that cool? The next key, no foreign or military failure. The withdrawal from Afghanistan, which was a scandal. That's why that other key should be false. But Allan Lichtman did mark that one false, because of Afghanistan. The next key, major foreign or military success. Now, I'm assuming he marked this one yes because of Ukraine. Now, these next two are very, very subjective. The next key, charismatic incumbent nominee. So Kamala Harris being charismatic. Even Allan Lichtman had to mark that one false. But with uncharismatic challenger, he marked that one true. Right up until he got into politics, Trump was very well liked for his charisma. And he's already been elected president. But Allan Lichtman still has that one marked true, that Donald Trump is uncharismatic. So I don't know if you were keeping score. Allan Lichtman said there was only 4 strikes against Kamala Harris. I counted 8. Now this is Nate Silver. He is a statistician, a journalist, and the founder of 538. He is also very, very accurate when making predictions. He developed an election forecasting system that successfully predicted the outcomes in 49 of 50 states in the 2008 U.S. presidential election. These two are fighting on Twitter now. Nate Silver is saying the same thing that I am. There's like 7 or 8 strikes on here easily, and somehow Allan Lichtman only has 4.
How I feel about polls. However, there's this one guy who has predicted 10 out of the last 10 presidential elections. Who is it and why?
It's going to be a path-breaking victory, the first woman president, Kamala Harris, and here's why. Under my 13-key system, which, as you said, has been right for 40 years, it takes 6 of the 13 keys to turn against the White House party to predict their defeat. At a maximum, the White House party this time loses 5 keys, 1 key short of the 6 needed to predict their defeat, and that's why, based on a system that's worked for 40 years and has nothing to do with my own political preferences. After all, I picked Trump, predicted Trump in 2016. I'm now predicting a path-breaking Harris victory.
So the glazing is absolutely insane when it comes to Allan Lichtman, but it's just not true. In 2000, using his system, Al Gore would have won. Bush won. But he had said, well, no, my thing covers the popular vote. It doesn't cover the Electoral College and Supreme Court cases. Oh, okay, so your system is still right. All right. Fast forward 16 years, Trump loses the popular vote but wins the Electoral College. Now he's trying to claim victory on that. Between 2000 and 2016, he went 3 for 5. And he gets really, really mad when people even try to ask him about it. Not call him out on it, just ask him about it.
You predicted Donald Trump would win the popular vote victory, which he didn't actually, but he did, of course, win the
I've got to stop you right there because... Okay. Stop, or I'm going to stop this interview. You are spreading misinformation. And, there has been this concerted campaign against me that started, by a couple of wannabe unknown journalists claiming I didn't predict Donald Trump's victory. That is an outright lie. I clearly, in my September 23rd Washington Post interview, said nothing about the popular vote. Said Donald Trump was headed for a win, that in fact, I predict any generic Republican would win this election based on the keys against the White House party. And I predicted at the time that Donald Trump would be impeached.
Yeah, but he went and backtracked and used his own university to do so. Editor's note, the story has been updated with a correction. It has been corrected to read that Professor Lichtman's 13-key system predicts the winner of the presidential race, not the outcome of the popular vote. Oh, okay, so you were either wrong in 2000 or wrong in 2016. Both can't be true. You can't be right both times. Nate Silver is basically calling him out for the same thing. He tweeted out, Lichtman is comically overconfident and doesn't own up to the subjectivities in his method. But you'll legit learn a lot about presidential elections by reading his work. And at least he's putting himself out there, making testable predictions.
But the keys to the White House is a system that claims to perfectly predict every presidential election dating back to, the 19th century based on 13 variables. There are a couple of problems when you try to apply this forward-looking. One is that a lot of the variables are subjective. So, is there a significant foreign policy accomplishment by the president? Is the opponent charismatic? These are things that if you know the answer already, you can overfit and kind of p-hack your way to saying, okay, now we can predict every election perfectly when we already know the answer. It's not that hard to predict, quote unquote, correctly when the outcome's already known. So when the election's moving forward, then actually Allan Lichtman will issue his prediction, but it's not obvious. You have to wait for him to come on stage or come on YouTube now and say, here's what I predict here based on my judgment. So he's, it's a judgment call, a lot of these factors. Also, he's kind of lied in the past about whether he was trying to predict the Electoral College or the popular vote and shifted back and forth based on which was right and which was wrong. But he's a good marketer, taking the system that's just kind of punditry with some, minimal kind of qualitative edge or quantitative edge and try to make it seem like it's something more rigorous than it is. He says, for example, that Donald Trump is not charismatic. By the way, he's a liberal Democrat, and I'm not a fan of Donald Trump, but he literally hosted a reality TV show. He was a game show host. I think there's a certain type of charisma that comes through with that, and that's the one thing he probably does have is that he's, charismatic, maybe not in a way that a Democrat might like, but he's a funny guy. He's an entertainer, literally. So I don't know how you wouldn't give him that key, for example. And look, it's not a terrible idea to say, let's just take a whole bunch of different frameworks, and kind of average them out. That's not actually such a bad idea. But you want heuristics that you build in ahead of time that you don't then have to apply subjectivity to. Even for forecasters, I think an election can be an emotional affair. You can have a personal preference for the outcome, or you can get invested in your forecast where you probably stand to gain more future opportunities if your forecast is perceived as being right. So you want to set up rules in advance that you're not allowed to change later, more or less, unless something's literally broken. If you're building the silver bulletin election model is several thousand lines of computer code. If we caught some actual bug, then a minus sign instead of a plus sign, then we'd have to own up to that and change it potentially. By the way, that model was already wrong this year because it said that Joe Biden would defeat Donald Trump and Joe Biden was losing so badly they had to quit the race. So you have a survivorship bias problem too in evaluating this forecast.
So that is Nate Silver's take on this. His take on the 2024 election is too close to call, 50-50, but his gut feeling, he thinks Trump's going to win. Silver also tweeted out, I've spent too much time on this and have a lot of receipts from how you've applied your keys in the past. At least 7 of the keys, maybe 8, clearly favor Trump. Sorry, brother, but that's what the keys say, unless you're admitting they're totally arbitrary. Allan Lichtman tweets out, Nate Silver has no understanding of or interest in the keys to the White House. He seeks to discredit the keys to advance his polling approach. He was wrong when he criticized my 2011 prediction of Obama's re-election, and he'll be wrong again if he tries to manipulate the keys now. So there's a Nostradamus on the left, that's Allan Lichtman, a Nostradamus in the middle, that's Nate Silver, and there's a Nostradamus on the right, this is Frank Luntz. He's a Republican, but he is very, very anti-Trump. But with that being said, he thinks Trump's going to win as well. He agrees with Nate Silver.
She's had the best 60 days of any presidential candidate in modern history. And then the moment that she turned anti-Trump and focused on him and said, don't vote for me, vote against him, that's when everything froze. And the fact is, Donald Trump is defined. He's not gaining, he's not losing, he is who he is, and his vote is where it is. She is less well-defined, and if she continues just to define this race as vote against Trump, she's going to stay where she is now, and she may lose.
Okay, so from this video, we have 4 predictions. Allan Lichtman, Nate Silver, Frank Luntz, and myself. You have Allan Lichtman, who says definitely Harris. You have Frank Luntz and Nate Silver, who say, I don't know, right down the middle, but probably Trump. And then I'm on the opposite side of Allan Lichtman. I think it's going to be Trump, and I don't think it's going to be close. I think he's probably going to win 5 or 6 of the swing states.